You've trekked across countless plains, forests, mountains, caverns, but finally, the desert is ahead of you. Across the sandy plains, you see the final fortress. You infiltrate, find, and defeat the boss with ease. Victory is yours. But as you sit in the crumbling base, you realize you're all alone, and there is no one coming to rescue you. You have only your memories and the games you hold so dear to keep you company. Can you survive? This is Desert Zone Discs. Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Zone Discs, the show where everything is hot, except for the host. Wait, what? Who wrote this? I have the great privilege of revealing my next guest. If you're on Twitter and you don't already follow this guy on Twitter, then you are severely missing out. I am, of course, talking about the wonderful, the absolutely incredible MGS3 speedrunner, Mr. ApacheSmash. Welcome to Desert Zone Discs.
Thanks very much, Nick. Thanks for having me, mate. I've been saying get me on this since I think I first saw you announce the first episode before I even watched it. I was like, yes, get me on.
I will be honest, when I was creating this and thinking about which guests I was going to have on, I knew there had to be an episode with you in it, because you're always you're already amazing on podcasts. If you for viewers who don't know, Apache is a regular on the Kojima Frequency, which is a podcast all about Hideo Kojima's games. It usually centers around Metal Gear, but they do talk about Police Nauts and Snatcher and Zone of the Enders sometimes.
At the moment, we talk about Final Fantasy because there's no new games coming out. It's a good show.
It is kind of difficult to talk about Metal Gear on a Metal Gear podcast when there's no new Metal Gear coming out.
I've literally had moments where I've just looked at the wall and been like, oh shit, there's literally nothing happening. But I keep the faith. Something will be happening soon. We know Kojima's working on 2 games, so
well, yeah,
something's gonna happen soon.
It's gonna be good. How did you get on with Death Stranding? Because obviously, massive departure from Kojima's other games.
I've said in the past, like, it just doesn't feel like a game that was made for me. I don't want to sit with a game and it try to like invoke something out of me. It's like it's kind of like the new Matrix film. It's like it's trying to teach you something, but I don't want to be taught. I want to watch an action film. I don't like it. I find the gameplay slow. I think the cinematics are fantastic. They're really well put together. Like the mocap stuff, they're using really talented actors to do the work. The writing's great. I'd rather enjoy it as a film, to be honest with you. I think Kojima, on some level, would just like to make a film.
You've only got to play any Metal Gear to know that they're heavily influenced by movies, and he would lend himself really well as a cinematic director.
Yeah, hugely, and you can tell with his new studio that he's opening up. Oh my god, this is the Kojima Frequency. You can tell with the new studio he's opening up, he's just going to lean into more of that. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a Netflix series, Death Stranding, in the future.
That'd be cool.
The one thing I did love about Death Stranding is it brought back an old game design mechanic of slowing the player down and giving them time to assess the surroundings. Nowadays, games are very like, next thing. You got to do this, then do this. And players are like hyper optimizing the shit out of everything. They just want to go as fast as possible and do everything as efficiently as possible. It was a lead designer of World of Warcraft who talked about how when you were questing in the vanilla WoW, when you were questing, when it came out, you would have like mana problems after you've killed a few mobs. You would need to sit and eat and drink to get your health and mana back. And they purposely designed it that way. So you would look around your surroundings and work out the terrain and look at your map and work out the next place to go. And I feel like Death Stranding brought that old school element back into a modern game.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from there. Just that time to just stop and just enjoy your surroundings and enjoy being in that world. I definitely got that from Death Stranding.
Yeah, I don't want that in a game. No, it's not my kind of game. It's not what I want to play. I played it because of who made it, and I think I have like 100 hours on it, something like that.
Oh wow! For a game you really didn't like, 100 hours is still pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's just like I didn't want to not play it and then be like, no, it's not for me. I have to go and, even though I kind of knew it wasn't going to be for me, I still had to go and prove that to myself. It has a lot going for it. It's just not my kind of thing.
And that's perfectly fine. There's no issue with having games that aren't for you. Games aren't meant to be enjoyed and played by everyone. We're actually recording the week that Elden Ring is about to come out, and there's a huge discourse online. I saw on Twitter earlier about people complaining about whether the game is for them, and it's like it's okay to just not like a game and but still appreciate it. I think that's the nice thing here is that you openly admit you don't like Death Stranding, but you still appreciate it as a game. You still appreciate it as an art form, and you're quite happy with that.
Yeah, I try not to be a hater. If I'm like hating on a game, it's more of a tongue-in-cheek thing. I don't have like any visceral hate for any game or game studio. They're just like businesses trying to sell you a product at the end of the day. I don't really feel anything towards them. If they sell me a good game, you can have my money. But I don't really care that much. With Elden Ring, I mean that thing's getting reviewed like crazy, and it's the lowest score it's got is like a 9. We're seeing like Breath of the Wild kind of reviews coming out for that game, which as people want to act like that just happens for people pay for reviews and that happens for loads of games. It really doesn't.
No.
There's generally always naysayers, and like even if IGN's given something a 10, it doesn't mean everyone else is going to be doing that. That game looks like it's going to bang so hard, which is good. If you love Dark Souls, you're really into all those games, not just Dark Souls, but like Sekiro, Bloodborne. If you're into those games and that's your whole thing and that's your personality, it looks like you're in for a really big treat with this game. And I'm just glad for everyone who likes that sort of thing. Excellent.
Well, let's talk about something that you do really, really enjoy. Your first choice that you've brought, it is based on a game, but it's got its origins in comic books. So talk to me about that first.
Yeah, so the song is Rip It Up. It's the theme song for Spawn in the Demon's Hand, which was a arcade port to the Dreamcast, which is what I originally played it on. The Dreamcast was like my first console. I'd played other people's consoles, but I never owned my own until the Dreamcast.
Okay, yeah.
And it was kind of a big deal to get a console in the first place. My family were quite poor, but also they weren't like going to I can't speak. They wouldn't just spend money on a console.
Yeah.
Like they're not just going to buy a console. So it took a lot of work to get that Dreamcast, and I was very happy with it. And just like with getting the console, I also couldn't get many games. So just having, 1 or 2 games, I would play them a lot. And I played Spawn in the Demon's Hand a great deal. I played it every single day. It's like a arcade game. You pick a character and then you go through different stages and you fight bosses. And it's also multiplayer as well. So you can play it like co-op. You can play it with 4 people in like a deathmatch mode. But because of that arcade style, every time you get to the end, which is like 10 levels or 20 levels in multiplayer, it'll kick you back to the main menu. And the main menu has this song. So I've heard this song thousands and thousands of times. It always like transports me back in time. to being a kid and playing this game on my Dreamcast.
So which came first for you? Was it because I understand from listening to the Kojima Frequency that you really like Spawn, you read the comics. Was it that you got the game and that made you fall in love with Spawn, or were you already a big fan of Spawn and this inspired you to get the game?
No, the game actually got me into Spawn. So I played this a lot, and then I also saw the live action film, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
It's like an old film now. It's like a classic at this point, right? But the acting, especially the guy who plays the clown, is like unreal good. So I love that. And then it was recently where I was like, I should really actually check these comics out. So I'd also heard that Todd McFarlane, who did the Spawn comics, he's also done stuff for Metal Gear. He's done artwork for Metal Gear.
Oh wow!
The Vulcan Raven toy that's in the tanker that you go up to with the light shining on it, he made that as well.
Nice.
Yeah, so there is a connection there. And when I heard that, I was like, well, I'm going to read the comics. And I started reading the comics, and the artwork is like phenomenal. It's so good. And I love that kind of like edgy stuff anyway. Like I play Reaper in Overwatch. I play a Demon Hunter in World of Warcraft. Like I like edgy stuff. And if you're into that, it's very for you. But the writing is dire. Like right at the start of the comic, the writing is terrible. And I said this to like some comic fans. I'm like, whoa, the writing's so bad. And they're like, oh, it's okay. Later on, they just get other people to write it because Todd McFarlane's writing wasn't that good, so they just got other people to do it. It's like, yeah, you just draw. That's what you're good at.
Hey, sometimes you just have to play to your strengths.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Well, let's have a listen. This is your first track by Crankshaft from Spawn in the Demon's Hand. This is Rip It Up.
Everything is well tonight, and my brain is rolling out of my head. My whole life is so damn great, and you're grating on my nerves again. So I called up the doctor, I showed him where I'm starting to swell. He gave me an aspirin for the pain, and now I'm feeling well. Tearing up all the pieces, tearing up all the lies. Rip it up, rip it till you torn up and terrified. All day long, I dig a ditch. You tell me this will be the end.
So that was Rip It Up from Spawn in the Demon's Hand. Now, Apache, for those who don't know you, I'm not quite sure how people would be listening to this without already knowing who you are, but apparently there are people out there who haven't. Tell us, why are you known in the community? What is it that you do best?
So I speedrun Metal Gear Solid 3. It was not the first Metal Gear speedrun that I started with, but it's one it's turned out I'm the best at. Out of all the games I've played, out of all the games I've speedrun, Metal Gear Solid 3 just felt like it was for me. I think I got good at it very quickly. And my goal when I first started the game, I started on the lowest difficulty, and I just wanted to be able to beat the record at the time. It was like a 1:19:30 or something. So I was grinding the game, and I beat the record quite quickly, but then I started taking like minutes off it. And then I was like, how low can I get this time? And now I think we've taken like 8 minutes or 9 minutes off the original time. And it wasn't just me. I got other people. Like when I pick up a speedrun, I'll just talk about it constantly, hopefully get other people interested. But lots of other really talented runners came in and had a look at things. And we found new strats for every single boss. Like in the beginning, people would just take the European Extreme route, and they would copy it, and they would do it on very easy. And that's a fine way to start. That is a fine way to start. But you have to treat difficulties in Metal Gear as completely different runs from one another. What works in very easy may not work in easy, may not work in normal, and so on. Sometimes it does, but you really do have to treat it like a new run if you want to find some new stuff. We found new strats for every single boss in the game, and these days it's way faster. And D-Limes was always in my ear, like, go do a harder difficulty, do a harder difficulty. So I eventually did easy and I did normal, and I beat those records as well. And then I set a challenge to myself. I said I'm going to hold every record in the game on every difficulty. So I got them all apart from European Extreme.
Mhm.
And European Extreme was held by a Japanese runner called Hikari, and he'd held it since May 2016. And the record was known in the community to be very, very good. And there was even a time when people were saying that you couldn't beat that time while playing on very easy. We know that's not true,
Yeah.
and a lot of people would probably say I would have never have thought that, but there were genuinely people who believed that, and like good runners of MGS3 who believed that. And I just grinded and grinded and grinded, and eventually I beat it. I was the first person to beat it after it had stood for 4 years.
Incredible.
And, it got beaten within 24 hours. So after I beat it, it got beat within 24 hours.
Wow.
It was very fun times in Metal Gear Solid 3. It's one of my favorite games. I have a Metal Gear Solid 3 tattoo on my arm. I've had that for 11 years at this point. I've been into speedrunning for 3, so I've been into Metal Gear Solid 3 a lot longer than I've been into speedrunning.
So I'm assuming that means then that you got Metal Gear Solid 3 like either on release or close to release, and
yeah. So my cousin who I live with now, actually, when we were kids, I used to go up to his house every single weekend, and he was like really into Metal Gear Solid, really into Resident Evil, and so he would have these games, and I would play them with him. I had like the Dreamcast. I didn't have like a PlayStation or anything like that. So I would only ever be able to play these games when I played them at his house or my best friend Kurt, who lived next door to me. And he had all the consoles and all the games on release. So I would go to my cousin's. I would watch him play these games because I was quite young for Metal Gear Solid 1, right? I was like eight years old, something like that. So a lot of the time I would just watch him play, and MGS2, I spent a lot of my time just watching him play. When I got a little bit older, that's when I started playing them. So Metal Gear Solid 3 was like the right age for me. I was like, I think 12 or 13 when it came out. And yeah, I played it and loved it. I think I preferred MGS2 back then on the PlayStation 2, but the HD remaster of 3 is, in my opinion, exceptional.
And what is it about MGS3 you think that's made you appreciate and fall in love with that more than the other games in the series? Because you are a fan of the other games. You do enjoy multiple games in the series, but there's just something for you about MGS3 that really clicked and is just something special.
I think there's a lot of people say that 3 Snake feels very sluggish, but I think 3 has the best movement out of all the games. And I know a lot of people would like probably disagree with me, but I love the way it plays. I love the way Snake moves in it. It's very there are just rules to every bit of movement that you have to follow. I like how there's so much room for this like flair. There's so much room to put your own spin on how you're doing a certain strat or how you're playing the game. No runners of 3 look the same, whereas I think with 2, a lot of 2 and 1, a lot of runners tend to look identical in many of the places in the game. If you showed me a video of someone who's in the top 10 of Metal Gear Solid 3, I could tell you who it is. I'd tell you who's playing just by watching them.
Wow.
Because I'm so used to everyone's individual like mannerisms. It's so difficult to like give a concrete example, but like I could watch everyone approach the Fury. I could watch how everyone runs down that corridor and how they turn and where they equip the sniper, where they equip the box, how they do their menus. I could tell you who it is. And, feel free to challenge me on this anytime. Like,
wow.
It just has its own, everyone has their own style. And I love that about it so much.
Fantastic. I'm really, to be honest, I'm really interested in learning more about 3 because my own speedrunning journey. So I really got into MGS1 last year. I've dabbled with 2, but I haven't taken to 2 quite as much as others have. I really took to Twin Snakes, but 3 is definitely on my list for this year. So it's probably next after. I'm tinkering with Ghost Babel at the moment, but once I'm done with that, 3 is probably the next one I'm going to learn. So I'm going to be looking in your direction for for your tutorials and all of the other great stuff that you've put out there. I mean, it's not too far-fetched to say, but when you think Metal Gear Solid 3 speedrunning, Apache is the first person you think of. There is no one more experienced and arguably better at the game than you are. You have made this your own so much, and it's been incredible watching. I haven't seen the journey from start to finish, but seeing the journey that you're on so far with it, it's been incredible.
Well, I'll fill you out. I'll fill you in on the bit that you missed out on. Before I'd even done a run, I was saying that I was going to beat the world record very easy. Before I'd even picked up the controller, I was like, "This could be faster," and I was really cocky and arrogant. I was a bit of an arse, to be honest with you, but I eventually calmed down. And I don't. A lot of people will say like, "Oh, you're the best player of 3," and when fucking name's gone. When Bad Humans posted a tweet and he was like, "These are my favorite players for each games," and he put me as his favorite 3 player. I was like, "Whoa, that's so like more affirming than anything else I've ever seen." For him to say that, because he's been around a long time, he's watched a lot of people play these games. It's a big deal for him to say that, and I did really try and. I'm always interested to do things that have never been done before. So, like with European Extreme Tuxedo, no one's ever done that in single segment. No one's ever done that with Foxhound rank. Is it even possible? Because certainly when I started practicing it and started figuring out a route for it, people were like, this is going to be ridiculous. You won't be able to do this. And that just spurred me on even more. I'm like, I must do it now. So I think like with 3, it was the first run. With other speedruns, I came in and I found little things that help, like little frame savers, but I never really did anything massive with the game. But with 3, I feel like I did so much uncovered ground, and there's still plenty more to go.
Am I right in thinking you are the first person that we at least know of who completed a European Extreme Foxhound speedrun all in one session?
Yeah, the first ever Foxhound single segment run. I've done it on both PlayStation 3 and the Xbox, and there are no other recorded runs of it. And I've got old heads digging into archives trying to find footage of someone else doing it. No one's done it. And believe me, the grind I did for the first one, I have a strong suspicion that no one's ever. It's not just a case of there aren't any recordings. I'm sure I'm the only one who's done it. Just
for viewers who aren't as familiar with MGS3, European Extreme is the most difficult difficulty level, and to get a Foxhound rank, if I recall correctly, it's 0 kills, 0 alerts. Is it like 1 ration, like some of the other games?
No life meds.
That's it, life meds, yeah.
Yeah, which in a normal run is fine, but in the Tuxedo, it makes the bike chase like it's kind of like a coin toss whether you'll survive it without a life med, because we use the camos to lower the amount of damage we receive. So the Tuxedo, by the way, it just makes the game harder. You can't use CQC. You get seen by the guards easier. You can't use the disguise in the lab, and yeah, it just makes the game harder. So it's like European Extreme Plus. It just makes it harder.
Amazing. So let's talk about the track that you've picked. It's no great surprise exactly which track you've picked. It is an iconic piece of music. Tell us about Snake Eater.
Yeah, Snake Eater, it's like the track for the game. It's the name of the game as well. It's in reference to James Bond, where they have a singer that has a track based on the name of the James Bond film. It's just unironically a banger. It's such a good song. And I have heard this song like hundreds and hundreds of times, and I never gets old. I never get bored of it. I make it like a prize piece inside of my run. I never talk while climbing the ladder, because I just want everyone to be able to enjoy it. The last thing I want is my voice over the top spoiling that song.
Excellent. It's, as I say, it's one of the most recognizable pieces of music in the Metal Gear series. An absolutely wonderful piece of music. This is from Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. This is Snake Eater.
With darkness and silence through the night, what a thrill. I'm searching and I'll melt into you. What a fear in my heart, but you're so supreme.
the wonderful Snake Eater from Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. Now, see, there's a lot of gunplay and stuff in Metal Gear, but I understand that you are a big fan of first-person shooters, which is obviously a little different, but we find our segues where we find our segues.
I like games where you shoot people. Speaking of games where you shoot people, first-person shooters. Yeah, I've always been into them. My first introduction to PC gaming, which I'd say I'm primarily a PC gamer, although I tend to speedrun all these console titles. Most of my gaming, I'd say 90% of my gaming is done on PC, and I've been an early adopter of PC. I feel like that shift has only happened recently for many other people, right? You have diehard console fans even now, even though I would say that a PC is kind of better in every way. But I felt like that all the way back then, when my next door neighbor, who I spent all my time with, my friend Kurt. In fact, before the podcast, we've been friends since we were 5 years old. Before this podcast, we were just playing a game together. So we're still really good friends now. He happened to just move in next door to my house one day, and we were friends ever since. But he got a gaming PC, or I wouldn't say it was a gaming PC. I mean, this is early 2000s. This is not a gaming PC. This is 2005. This was a PC that had games on it. And we would play a lot of mostly Battlefield. I'd say back when before I had my own PC, we would play a lot of Battlefield, Battlefield 2, and then later 2142, which was, in my opinion, the best one, but it was really short-lived. I feel maybe it was too early for that game. It came at the wrong time. You needed a good PC to run it. It was just a futuristic version of Battlefield. You used to jump on these giant ships called Titans, I think they were called, and you used to have to try and take the other persons down. But they had maps from the previous games, and they Wake Island is a super popular Battlefield map. And when they brought it to 2142, they made a guitar version of the theme, and it's one of the best gaming songs I've ever songs from video games I've ever heard. After you've listened to it, definitely treat yourself to listening to the original so you can hear the difference. But it always just hypes me up, and it embodies that feeling of FPS where you just run in at the enemy and try and take out as many people as possible.
And when you were first playing this, were you just playing this locally? Were you able to go online and play, or?
These games are they have to be played online.
Yeah.
Battlefield games having a single player came later. So when these games were on the PC, that the multiplayer component playing on servers, that was all there was to them. That's the reason you would play them. For anyone who hasn't played Battlefield, it's like Call of Duty with vehicles. It's like Call of Duty with vehicles and guns that go further.
And have you continued that love of Battlefield? Obviously, we've had lots of Battlefield games since. I know the latest one's not received particularly good attention. But has that love of Battlefield and that series continued?
No, it sucks. Not long after, COD. There was that moment in 2007 where the COD 4 multiplayer beta and the Halo 3 multiplayer beta came out at the same time, and it was such a wonderful year. I got really into COD 4 and then Modern Warfare 2 as well. I'd say Modern Warfare 2, out of all the shooters, is probably the one I've spent the most time on.
I'm probably the same, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember the ACR with no recoil, had no recoil at all. The care package glitch that used to let you run at 150% speed, and you could have that with the commando perk, and you could sprint around the map just knifing people from miles away like an energy sword. The elevators on the maps that used to they had so many glitches on the map where you could get into the skybox, and you could leap off the skybox and do 360s to snipe people. Great game. And people always look back at it so fondly and say, oh, they should bring it back. No, they shouldn't. They should stay where it was, because it's only good in our memory. I promise you, if everyone knew all the best stuff in that game, the game's ruined.
So if you're not playing the latest Battlefield, which FPS games are you playing, if any, at the moment?
Oh, I absolutely love the popular MMO Call of Duty Warzone. And I kind of love it in the weirdest way. Like, it is an objectively bad game. There's so many problems with it. It runs like shit. It has so many issues with hackers. Guns take forever to level up. The meta is always completely imbalanced, and then like you level up your meta weapons, and then they change the meta weapons. It's such a nightmare game, but at the same time, like when you have moments in those games where it feels good, it's the best shooter ever made. It's like when it's on, it's such a good game, but it just has so much crap that comes with it.
I've had a little bit of experience with that one, but I don't know. It didn't keep my attention for long enough, and then with like speedrunning and stuff, I don't actually play that many games outside of speedrunning at the moment. Mainly because I'm too busy either recording or editing podcasts at the moment. All right, so let's go back to Battlefield 2142. This is the track you chose, Wake Island theme from Battlefield 2142. Let's have a listen. Wake Island theme tune from Battlefield 2142. So, ApacheSmash, you've talked to me already about speedrunning. You've talked to me already about first-person shooters. Have those two things ever come together?
Well, Nick, you'll be surprised to hear that I actually speedrun a first-person shooter game. It's called Time Splitters 2. Time Splitters 2 was made by Free Radical, and much of the team were the people who worked on GoldenEye, which is another shooter that I very nearly included a song from in this podcast. It was spiritual.
I understand your original list was like 15 and you had to whittle it down to 7.
It was so hard. It was so difficult. There's so many good, there's so many, not just like great video game tracks. Like, you can make playlists of thousands of good video game tracks. But ones that actually are so personal to me and like I can talk about for a long time. That there are so many of them because I spent so much time playing computer games. So like it's just natural, right? But yeah, it was really hard to bring the list down. But Time Splitters 2 was made by much of the team who made GoldenEye, and it was everything that was good about GoldenEye, but everything that was bad about GoldenEye removed. It's a flawless game. The narrative is awesome. You're traveling to different periods of time, and so every map is like wildly different. The guns you use are wildly different, and it also has full co-op for the story mode. And that's something I've always loved. I love co-op games, and I wish there was more like split screen co-op. Like nowadays, obviously, we would do like LAN, online co-op.
Yeah.
But I just wish more games just had co-op. It's something I've always been a big fan of. So me and Kurt play Time Splitters all the time. We would play this through the story. We would also do like it's got like a challenge mode. It's got so many stages where you can just do all these crazy challenges and you unlock new characters. It's a fantastic game. And the whole time I started speedrunning, I always thought about this game and I was like, I want to do the co-op speedrun. Like I didn't really care about being super good at it or anything. I just wanted to experience like speedrunning, but with a friend as well. And so I recruited my friend Adam whose username is Tasty. Shout out Adam.
Woo.
Really, really good friend of mine. And I knew he would be down because Adam is like automatically on board with any idea I have. We've ran like Melee tournaments together that came with, I wanted to run a Melee tournament, and then Adam came in and like executed on my ideas. We've run a thing called Mystery Tournament together, which is like part video game quiz, part video game tournament. It's got speedrunning elements involved. I was like, let's do this. I've got all these crazy ideas, and he would just execute on them every single time. So I knew he would be doing the co-op speedrun. And I said to him before we'd ever done a run, I was like, we'll learn this and we'll get David Doak to do the commentary on it. We'll submit it to an event and I'll get David Doak to do the commentary on it. And he was like, you're crazy. So we learned the speedrun and we submit to UKSG. And then I messaged David Doak. I'm like, hey, do you want to come do the commentary? He's like, yeah, sure. So got to meet who I consider to be one of my absolute favorite game designers. I don't think he's ever made a bad game. And it was really cool to use my speedrunning hobby to be able to meet someone who was so influential to me.
Wow, that is amazing. and that wouldn't be the last time that your speedrunning influence in that way has benefited and brought other people on board, because late last year we had the Unmetal event.
Yeah. Unmetal, Jack Clefia. I remember when I got a message off him, and it was like, really, it was kind of corporate, it was kind of friendly, but he was messaging me saying like, do you want to do a voice in a video game? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, of course I do. You know what I mean? Like, what a ridiculous thing to ask. And they offered us like payment for that as well, and I declined. Like, apparently quite a few people who did it declined as well, because it was just like, no, I want to do this because it's cool.
Oh yeah.
And I do get messages from time to time. Like, I don't have a huge stream or anything, but people do message me and say like, oh, I'm making this game, do you want to come play it? And I always say no, because I'm not. I don't just play like any game. I don't just get involved in any game. I'm not willing to just receive a game for free and do game testing, because like the kind of games I play, it's very focused, and I just don't think I would be very good for your game as well. It's not that I don't appreciate the offer, it's just like that's not what I do. And so for him, they were making a game in I don't want to choose my words carefully here, because Unmetal is a parody of Metal Gear.
Indeed,
but it's
yeah.
not a rip-off of it. It's very much its own thing. And it has so much personality, and it's almost like the fact that it's a parody of Metal Gear is like the hook. It's saying, "Oh, you're a Metal Gear fan. Come and play this game." It's a parody of it. We're making jokes of Metal Gear, and you play it, and it does that on the surface level. But beyond that is a game that controls fantastically. Like some of the feelings of the weapons in that game, like the flamethrower, the pistol, they feel awesome to use. The stages are interesting, and the boss fights are, challenging. And I've never really been into 2D games either, but I really loved it. And like, I think I have like 300 hours on that game or something, which, no one was forcing me to play it. But I had the idea when I was saying, like, with a Metal Gear speedrun community, can we do something like, can we do a tournament for this game? Can we do a speedrun event for this game? And they were like, holy shit, that's crazy. We'd love to do it. And I definitely had a worry when I was setting this up before I took it to MGSR. Like, I had a worry that people were going to be like, this isn't a Metal Gear game. We're not doing this shit. And that was like stuck in my mind. I was kind of stressed about it. But then once I took it to everyone was like, this is a great idea. And then we took it to the wider community, and the wider community was like, yeah, this is a great idea. So we had the Unmetal event at the launch of the game. It was two weeks after, to give people a chance to play it. But yeah, that's forever like a part of our community's history now. And I'm proud of that.
I think one of the most incredible things about it is that, the developers came to us and they said, we want to put a timer in the game. We want to make the game accessible for speedrunning. How best can we do that? And they collaborated with us. And it's not every day you find a game developer collaborating with a speedrunning community to make the game a good game to speedrun. And
yeah, and they don't necessarily understand it. Like Fran was very open that like he didn't really get why people would do that in the first place. Do you know what I mean? Like he was very indifferent to it, but at the same time, it was cool that people were doing it, and he wanted to do as much as he can. And I'll say right now, Fran and Jack Clefairy, they went beyond all expectations of what anyone wanted them to do.
Absolutely.
Like anytime you asked them something, they said yes and. It wasn't no, it wasn't maybe, it was yes and. It was always whatever you ask, they will do more than that. And literally you couldn't pay me to give a review like this to people. I wouldn't say if it wasn't true. It was very fucking awesome to work with them.
It was an absolute delight, and we continue to collaborate with them. You know, Jack Clefairy's been doing commentary on runs. He came back for one of MGSR's relay races, which was myself versus Metal Glen Solid. We had a race, and Jack Clefairy was on the comms for that. And one of the other nice things is they've recently been winning a bunch of awards. They've just had the 2021 Spanish Video Game Awards, and it won best game, best PC game, best idea, best narrative, and Fran himself won best Spanish developer. The game has just come leaps and bounds, and it was an absolute pleasure to be a part of. And you know, the community, you know, owes them a great deal of thanks, and we owe you a great deal of thanks for, you know, for being the person, for being that ambassador for us between them. So, you know, and you know, for people who don't know, I'm extremely active with Unmetal. I'm currently the world record holder for any % easy. I'm going to be working on other difficulties later this year. And you know, a huge thank you to you for the role you played in putting that together and bringing these two communities together. So, you know, on behalf of myself and everyone who loved that and took part of it, you know, thank you.
No worries, mate. Like as I say, I'm proud it happened. But I've learned so many like hard lessons with that. I'm not a project manager. Like I don't have any experience running an online event. I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I had the games people who were willing to do everything they can to help me, and I had the amazing community of MGSR. And like I honestly just asked people for things, and they came and did it. A lot of people worked together to make that event happen. And I made mistakes with it because I had a vision of how I wanted it to be. And I had to, like, you know, Jack Clefairy had his own ideas about how he wanted it to go. And I had a vision of how I wanted it to go. And I thought I don't know if this will work, but if I compromise on certain things and then it's something else, I'll never know if it did work. I think is quite selfish. And I don't think the event was a failure, but I think if I could go back and change things, I do think I could have done it better. And so I learned a lot of hard lessons with it. And afterwards, I felt quite sad for a long time. You know, I felt very weird towards the game because I don't feel like I did all I can. And I think I made mistakes with it.
No, I don't think the community would agree with you, because it wasn't an absolute blast. And yeah, and it's true. There was just so much effort put in by so many people to do. And one of the things it did was give us, you know, a brand new appreciation of like the backside of creating that stuff. You know, we had the tech side of it. Huge shout out to Lightning Strikes for all the work she did to create that tech. You know, we had 7 people running at the same time. We could swap people over. We had like little animations that played when players were swapping it. It was, you know, and you're right. We've all learnt lessons from that, and it's taken us into what we're doing with MGSR now. And I don't think we'd be in quite the same place if we didn't have it. So I wouldn't beat yourself up, because it was great.
No, I don't. I don't anymore. I don't anymore. There was definitely a period that directly followed it though, where I did feel quite down about it. And I'm not there anymore. Like Jack Clefairy was very encouraging and very helpful with getting over that as well. And like you say, our production for Metal Gear speedruns is better now.
Oh, absolutely.
there's so many things that we can do, and things that we're going to attempt in the future that have directly resulted from that event we did for Unmetal.
Cool. We've gone off on a bit of a tangent from Time Splitters too. So we'll try and swing it back round. Let's actually talk about the piece of music you've picked from Time Splitters 2. So this is from the opening level, I believe.
It is the opening level that starts at a dam, and there's a joke that all free Radical games and all Rare games start with a dam, but it was apparently a complete accident. So obviously, the first level of GoldenEye is a dam as well. Siberia is a dam. And this absolutely gorgeous piece of music plays. The whole soundtrack to the game is a banger. Play the game if you haven't. Give the soundtrack a listen if you haven't. It's like quintessential PlayStation 2 video game music.
Amazing. Well, this is from Time Splitters 2, Siberia. Time Splitters 2, Siberia. So, we talked about first-person shooters. Obviously, we've talked about Metal Gear. We've talked about Spawn. And I know that the last 3 tracks that you've got on here are all from RPGs. I understand that you are a big RPG fan. How did you get into those RPGs in the first place?
I'd say the first proper RPG that I super got into was Knights of the Old Republic.
Ooh, nice.
So the original one playing on the Xbox. I would play at a friend's house, and I'd just never seen I'd never seen a game like that before. It was something. There's something so special about Knights of the Old Republic that I can't quite put into words right now. But it's like you're in the Star Wars universe and you're a guy. You're just some guy. You're not Luke. You're not Anakin Skywalker. You're just in the world and you can go around and interact with stuff. And I think there's obviously playing it now. I've gone back and played that game tons of times. But the feeling then was that the world was just completely infinite and completely persistent. There's like a mystery to games when you're younger. That you kind of see through. Unfortunately, you see through it as an adult. So that was the first time I really got exposed to an RPG, and it was the first one that I really wanted to play all the time. And I think that's why I like MMOs so much, because they actually are persistent, and anything can happen in them. And there's an extra level of entertainment that's brought in by player interaction.
Mm. So I know that the next game on your list is World of Warcraft. Obviously, probably the most famous MMORPG. Did you get into World of Warcraft from the start, or did you jump in partway through? How did you first enjoy WoW?
I kind of fell in and out with it. So my next door neighbor again, Kurt, he played a lot of World of Warcraft, and I played some vanilla when it first came out, some TBC. Went back in Wrath, and I never fully clicked with it. I liked it, but I was always playing other stuff. But when Legion came out, I don't even know how it happened. So I'd say after Warlords of Draenor. I'm sorry if you're not familiar with the WoW expansions.
I know of them.
I'm so sorry. Like, so I went away for a long time and came back for Legion, and Legion, in my opinion, is the best World of Warcraft has ever been. And there'll be so many people who would like claw my eyes out for just implying that could even be true. Legion was so good. The whole leveling experience was awesome. The main the dungeons, the raids, the way they brought Karazhan back as a 5-man instance. Karazhan as a 5-man instance is my favorite dungeon they've ever put into the game, and I've played most of them while they're relevant as well. So I'm really familiar with them, and it is absolutely my favorite. But what I really loved in Legion was raiding. So raidings where you get a bunch of nerds together who play the game too much, and they come together to play the game even more. That's from the TV show Pure Ownage. I don't know if you ever saw that, but that's what a LAN cafe owner describes an MMO as, a raid as. So there's a raid called the Nighthold, and it's in the main city of Suramar, and the story leading up to it is fantastic. You have all these elves, and they're trapped under the threat of the Legion, and they're encased in this city with a huge shield around it, and they live off the energy. They live off these lines of energy, and the Legion, who are these fucking horrible demons from space, they want that energy. So the elders of this city make a deal with these horrible people to give them the energy in response to the freedom, because they're at the gates of the city, and they're going to break into it eventually. And it's just following that story. And the Nighthold is the architecture of it's beautiful. The boss fights are really interesting and awesome. And I rated it in Mythic, which is the hardest difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
So the absolute turbo nerds of the game. Who only care about how much damage they're doing on the meter. Everyone's shouting at each other. Everyone's horrible to each other. And like, I exposed myself to this every day. Shit, like, everyone was horrible to each other. Like, I can think, when I think of Legion, it's so weird because I had so many bad times, and there was so much drama in my life. Like, there was like guild coups. There was like women being unfaithful to their husbands in the guild, sending nude pictures to people. It was fucking wild, right? And the whole time, I was logging into this game every day and playing it. I loved it, you can, with World of Warcraft, a huge problem is you can never play the game like as it was. Classic and TBC servers, them coming out is like a relatively new thing where they let you experience the content again. But even then, like, it isn't the same as when it first came out, because now everyone knows everything and they know what to expect. And so people play the game differently. So Legion is not only a game that I love, but it's a game that I can genuinely never play again. There is no way to play it. So I think that's part of the attraction and why I like it so much.
Because it just wouldn't be that same experience you had the first time round.
Yeah, it's the game. Literally, like, it's not the same. Like with Classic, right? You can go on a Classic server and you can play the game as it was. You can't do that with Legion. There's no like Legion Classic servers. So you can go in the places. You can go to Suramar. You can go inside the Nighthold raid. You can fight the bosses, but you can't do it as it was then. And so that experience can never be repeated.
And who was it that you were playing with? Were these people that you knew outside of gaming, or were did you make friends specifically on WoW?
I just met them. I just met them online, and when we were done, I never spoke to them again. I always joke that, like, with MMO, with people you meet in World of Warcraft, this isn't the same for every MMO, but people you meet in World of Warcraft, they only care about World of Warcraft. And I would occasionally get messages on Battle.net of people, and they'd be like, "Oh, you playing the next WoW expansion?" I'd be like, "No," and then they'll just not message me again. So, like, I can think of all these character names and people I interacted with, but it's like that entire portion of my life, I don't know any person that I played with. Now I have no holdover friends from Legion. It was the whole thing was geared towards the Nighthold raid, which isn't the last raid of the expansion or anything like that. After the Nighthold was done and Tomb of Sargeras was coming out, they had made some changes to the game, and I remember I had all like the best gear in the game. Right, I've got like all the highest level gear, and I've gone into like the expansion zone, like the newest expansion zone, and I pulled some mobs, and I remember the mobs came over and killed me, and I was like, how is that possible? Like, it shouldn't happen. I should be able to pull this entire zone and none of the mobs would do any damage. I went on the World of Warcraft website, and in the news it said that they had changed the scaling, so if your gear's better, the mobs in the world are harder. And I was like, well, what's the fucking point in playing? if I just upgrade my gear and then like stuff becomes harder, what's the point in getting the upgrade? And I just stopped playing because I didn't really care for that like content outside. WoW's got a lot of what people call like busy work or wizard chores, is what my friend
that's a nice term for it.
Wizard chores. There's this crap that you have to do every day to get like the bullshit power system. I'm so done with World of Warcraft. Like, I really hate WoW now. Even before like all the BattleNet, Activision Blizzard problems that they're having in California, even before any of that came out, I was kind of done with them because they're just trying to bleed a player base dry, and they don't respect your time. And so like I didn't want to play anyway.
Does that mean Legion was your last venture into WoW, or did you play other?
No, I still bought BFA and Shadowlands because I'm a fucking idiot. But I'm definitely not buying the next one.
Oh, fantastic. Well, talk to me about Suramar then, because that is the track that you've chosen.
Yeah, so Suramar is a place inside the Broken Isles. It's the main city. It's where you go to when you're max level, and you meet the Suramar elves, and you learn about them. And I think it's a gorgeous area. They are the Suramar people are my favorite race. Their story just I never really cared about the World of Warcraft story. Like most people don't care about stories in MMOs. A lot of MMOs, people just don't play for that. Like people don't read quest texts in World of Warcraft. Very few people care about the lore of World of Warcraft. And if you're like some crazy like WoW lore nerd, I'm sorry, but some people do, right? But most people don't. And I don't know. It kind of bit me. It kind of got me. I was like really getting into it, but it wasn't really like the main overarching story of the expansion. And it's even got Illidan in it, which is like a a demon hunter who is known as someone who's very cool in the WoW universe. And just like this place and these people really did it for me. And I love the music, and I listen to the music of Suramar all the time. Like just when I'm working or playing something else, I always go back to it.
Awesome. Well, let's have a listen to it now. From World of Warcraft Legion, this is Suramar. Suramar from World of Warcraft Legion. And as I'm sure that World of Warcraft isn't going to be the last time we have this on the episode, for those who are curious, Legion's the only bit of World of Warcraft I ever played. I think I got to max level, but I took part in some dungeons, but I never got to raiding or anything like that. I just couldn't keep up with everyone. So yeah, I've played a bit of World of Warcraft Legion, but that's about it. The only MMO I really got into was Guild Wars 2, and even then I sort of kind of got to max level and then just stopped. I don't know what it is about MMOs. I just kind of struggled. It's not that I didn't enjoy them. I just struggled to get into them. But
have I got an MMO for you then?
Well, it's interesting the way you talked about Legion. It kind of sounded like you didn't actually enjoy playing WoW. You just kind of played it. So is there an RPG that you do actually have fun with and don't just tear each other's hair out with?
Yeah, for sure. My favorite RPG of all time is The Elder Scrolls Oblivion. It was I want to say it was a launch title for the Xbox 360. I think it might have been slightly delayed. I think it might have been just after it came out, but it was very early in the Xbox 360's life cycle.
That sounds about right.
And I'm telling you now, that game looks like shit, but at the time, oh my god, when we saw those water textures, we couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe our luck. And I didn't play Morrowind first. I didn't play the earlier Elder Scrolls. I have played them now. But this is my favorite, and there's kind of a running joke with Elder Scrolls. It's like wherever you start, that's the one you die hard for. No one ever plays Oblivion and then says Morrowind's the favorite. No one ever plays Skyrim and then says Oblivion's the favorite. It's like whatever one you started with, that's the best one.
I can completely agree. I started with Oblivion, and I would 100% agree with you that Oblivion is the best Elder Scroll.
Yeah, have you ever been caught in the argument with like someone who thinks Skyrim's better? And you're like, are you fucking insane? There's always this thing where if you're going up to the next one, you'll always be like, are you absolutely crazy that you could think that that's better? But when you go down one, you always respect it. So when you're talking to someone who says Morrowind's the best, you're always like, no, I get why Morrowind could be your favorite, but for me, I just think Oblivion's better. But when it's Skyrim, you're like, are you fucking insane? That's just something I noticed with Elder Scrolls arguing.
Interesting thing for me, despite I've played a little bit of Morrowind, I've played an absolute ton of Oblivion, and I've played a decent chunk of Skyrim. Outside of speedrunning Oblivion, and when I say speedrunning Oblivion, I mean like clipping out of bounds, finishing the entire game in less than 10 minutes. That joke run, which was a lot of fun. But outside of that, I've never actually completed the main quest line of an Elder Scrolls game.
Oh wow, for real? Like I actually do speedrun Oblivion, which is kind of funny because you speedrun Oblivion as well. But I do I did No Out of Bounds, but I started speedrunning it around the time people started routing No Dragonfire Skip, which is no restrictions apart from you can't use that thing, the door, to start the main quest.
Oh yeah.
So you can't just skip straight to the last quest. I love the Oblivion speedrun. I love watching them. I just don't like doing it. I actually just don't like playing the game like that. But I always follow it. The world record recently got beat. I think it's like 20 minutes now. Like 2 days ago or something. But for me, like I got into Oblivion when it first came out, and I have played it for hundreds and hundreds of hours. I've been every single step of that map. When I got it later on the PC, I got really into putting mods on it, because there's hundreds and hundreds of mods. There's like entire DLCs worth of mods that you can download for that game, and I think that Shivering Isles is the best DLC made for a game ever.
I will 100% completely agree with you on that as well. Shivering Isles is an absolute masterpiece. As much as I never actually finished the main quest of, I think that's the reason I never finished the main quest of Oblivion, because as soon as I got into the Shivering Isles, I just never wanted to leave.
You have to play it. Like you have to play it, and then you understand and appreciate it. It's a fucking masterpiece. I did play Skyrim when it came out. I got it on release. I was like hugely excited for it because I'd loved Oblivion right up until the point Skyrim came out. I was still playing Oblivion all the time. And I think it's good. It's a fine game, but there's something missing. And I think the best way to describe it is in the way the quests are, not the way the quests are written, because the writing in Skyrim is very good. It's the way in which the story is delivered to you as the player. So the Skyrim quests kind of follow a structure that is like, go here and get this thing from this cave. Oh no, there's some bad guys in there. Fight through the bad guys, get to the end of the cave, get the thing, get out, then get more story. In Oblivion, there's a quest where you go to the Mages Guild, and you're like, you need to get a recommendation from this guy, and he's like, oh, okay, I'll give you a recommendation. Just go in that well there and equip this ring, and then the ring's heavy and you drown. And it's like, what the fuck? This guy's killing people. and you find that out through the story being delivered to you, and that's just like it's just like a random quest at the start of the Mages Guild. Sorry for the Oblivion spoilers, but the game's been out for like 17 years, so I don't really care that much.
I think we're probably in safe territory here.
Yeah, it was just something else, and like the Thieves Guild. The Thieves Guild literally had you had to get recruited to like this secret organization. You're like a low level thug, and and eventually you grow up in the ranks. And I definitely don't want to spoil that, because play it if you haven't. Even the side quests in Oblivion just deliver phenomenal story to you. The voice acting's incredible. It's got like Patrick Stewart. It's got
Sean Bean.
What's he called? Sean Bean, who always dies. Really good voice actors. And yeah, I just felt like there was always something new to do in that game. There was always more to explore with it. And I have done, like, as far as you can 100% a game, I have 100% at Oblivion. I've done everything in it.
Wow, that is quite the achievement for such a massive game. Let's talk about the choice of music that you have picked for Oblivion. Why specifically Piece of Akatosh?
It's like I almost picked the main theme that starts when you start up the game, and for me, like it wasn't the huge like driven pieces of music in Oblivion that I loved. It was more like the slower, more sentimental pieces that that are all part of the aesthetic of that game. The music fits that game perfectly. And again, whenever I listen to it, I just get fond memories for this game. My next tattoo is going to be an Oblivion gate symbol.
Oh, sweet.
So like I still love that game now. I think about it a lot. Yeah, I love it.
Amazing. Right, let's have a listen. This is Piece of Akatosh from The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. From The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, Piece of Akatosh. So, ApacheSmash, we are getting onto your last track. We've just talked about World of Warcraft. We've just talked about Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Let's talk about the last RPG on this list. And I understand that this is the one game that you are playing very actively at the moment.
Yeah, I can't believe I don't even know how this happened, right? Because I always say like I'm not playing an MMO. Like I don't get into MMOs because I just become a fiend. Like you heard what it was like in World of Warcraft. I just became this like recluse fiend that just played Legion and did nothing else but play Legion. And so I was reluctant to get into it. And Days Ahead, who is one of the hosts on the Kojima Frequency and a very good friend of mine, is always saying like, "Oh, I'm playing this. You should come play this with me." And I kept saying like, I'll come and play it in the future. But I got like quite ill at the end of December, and it affected that. Like I got COVID, and then I got long COVID, and so I just haven't really had the energy to do anything. I haven't streamed. I'm slowly getting over this now. By the way, I'm beginning to feel a lot better, but I haven't streamed like all the way through January. I didn't stream at all, and I just didn't have the energy to speedrun. Speedrunning is very taxing, and especially streaming. Like streaming takes away all your energy very quickly. And so I dreaded the idea of doing that. And so I thought it's a good time to just try something chill out. Because I know if I play an MMO with Days, I can sit in a voice call with her. And even if I don't say anything the whole time, like, she won't care. So if I'm so low energy that I can barely speak, like, she'll just tell me what's going on in the game, what we need to do. So I was playing it. It's very chill. It's a story-driven game. It's described as an RPG MMO as opposed to an MMO RPG. You can pretty much play this game on your own, and you rarely have to interact with another player. And the story is told through the Warrior of Light, and you are the main character in the MMO. Every single person who plays it is the main character. Yep. You are the most important person in the story of Final Fantasy XIV. And like, at first I was like, it seems like a really good game. Like, it's similar to World of Warcraft. It's tab targeting, and you have spells, and it's quite simple gameplay. If you played an MMO before, it won't be unfamiliar to you. But the story's like, it's quite good. It's quite good, and I liked how low energy it was. I didn't really have to think about it too much. I kind of just followed the story along and sat back in my computer chair chilling. The first expansion, Heaven's Ward, is one of the best games I've ever played. It's wow. Not just like one of the best MMOs I've ever played. It's not one of the best RPGs I've ever played. It's straight up one of the best games I have ever played. The story is phenomenal. And you can see the difference because you play A Realm Reborn, which is the original game, and it was fine. It was nothing to write home about. I didn't hate it, but it was fine. Passable game. It seems like they just got a huge influx of money for writing and voice acting, and they learned a lot more about what they wanted to do with the game. And all of a sudden, things that I'd learned about in A Realm Reborn were being paid off in a huge way, and it like rewarded me for listening to the story like 12, 13 hours ago. It's suddenly like everything's paying off, and it's a huge complaint that I make about modern Star Trek is that they put plot points into it, and then 2 episodes later they completely forget about them. This game never forgets anything it says. It remembers all its own continuity. It even has situations where something happens, you say something out loud in real life, like, oh, that was stupid, that was ridiculous. And then 2 minutes later, a character says it, and he's saying exactly what you're saying about it. It's so self-aware. And this is just, I'm just talking about the story here. The underlying game I thought was good from the moment go. The system, it feels great. If I could complain about it, I would say the UI is crap compared to like a game like World of Warcraft. Its menu systems are bad. That's probably the worst complaint I can level at it. It's one of the friendliest games I've ever played in my life. You have never seen an MMO where people are nice to each other. Everyone is nice to each other in this game. I'm not kidding. The GMs and stuff are very serious. You cannot just give people shit in a dungeon in this game. You can't like go into a piece of content, and if you feel like someone didn't heal you well enough, you can't just start giving them abuse. In World of Warcraft, you can send them death threats and you probably still won't get banned. It is a different world, and it makes you nice as well. Because I'll be honest, I have kicked people out of raids. I have been awful to people over voice communication, and similarly people have been awful to me. It's just the climate of the game you play. Final Fantasy XIV is not like that at all. It's very, very friendly, and it's also like, to do the story content, to follow the story of the game, the content is very easy. And if you want a challenge and you want to do really difficult stuff, it also has that available, but none of it is required.
Sounds like a really good entry point into MMOs then.
I'd say if you wanted to try an MMO, that's the one you should try. If you love Final Fantasy, if you really care about the stories in Final Fantasy, I have played quite a few Final Fantasies. This is the best one I've played. Heaven's Ward expansion of 14 is, like I say, it's one of the best games I've ever played. So it's easily my favorite Final Fantasy game. So if you're a Final Fantasy fan, give it a go. If you're an MMO fan, give it a go. And if you want to come piss about with me in a computer game, definitely give it a go. Free trial started today. Everyone who plays this game becomes a walking advertisement for it. And I have joked about this. I've literally joked about this. That everyone who plays the game becomes a walking advertisement for it. And now I'm literally that person because I played it.
It's the Breaking Bad of MMOs.
It's so damn good. It's so damn good. And there were so many things in the game that put me off because, like, I've played quite a few Japanese. I'm quite into Japanese video games. I'm not really like an anime guy. And a lot of people describe it as like a weeby game, and it is. In the same way, World of Warcraft's kind of like a neckbeardy game.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it if you're not a neckbeard. And just like this, you don't need to be a weeb and being super into anime to enjoy this game. I do honestly think it has something for everyone. And the other thing I hated was there's a race of people in Final Fantasy XIV called Lalafels, and they're little short. They kind of look childlike. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I hate everything about these. And then when you play the game and you meet them, you're like, these are the best things ever made. They're so good. So cool. Yeah, I want to say, like, in 21 days game time, I played it for 11 days total. Don't do that. Like,
wow.
The game doesn't need you to do that. No one says you have to do that. And like, no one was forcing me to do that. I did that to myself. That's just how I am. That's just how I play games. I'm like either all in or I just won't play it. You can enjoy it at your own pace, and it doesn't like say, oh, if you don't log in every day, you don't get this. You can put it down or pick it up as much as you want.
Cool. So, talk to me about the music track that you picked from FF14. Why Shiva's theme?
Okay, so it's almost impossible. This is something I haven't even mentioned. The music in this game is unreal good, like unreal good. The guy who composes all the music, they just have one composer. He does all the music in the game. It's unreal good, and they even have their own bands where they do live performances of the music. That's how good it is. It can have a crowd of people go and watch a band perform the music from the game. Because it is that good. And so it was really difficult to pick a track that I wanted to have on here. Like I said, I like whittled down from like 16 or 17 songs total. The reason I have to pick Shiva's theme, a song called Oblivion, and this song has two phases. So this song literally plays while you do this boss fight. You fight a primal called Shiva. You may have seen her in Final Fantasy X and other Final Fantasy games. She's kind of a staple. She has her own story within this game. And in this song, it starts out very slow and it lets you build into the boss fight. And once the boss gets to a certain threshold, she casts a spell called Diamond Dust and she freezes everyone. And once the ice breaks, the song changes to a pop punk kind of ballad with lyrics. And it's got a girl like singing the lyrics to the song. The lyrics to the song were written in the patch 2.5 for the game where you do the fight, and the lyrics don't actually fully make sense until later on in Heaven's Ward. And from what I'm told, they still haven't paid off now because something happens later in the game that I don't know about. So it's not just that it's a piece of music that accompanies this boss, it accompanies the narrative. It builds in with the fight and how you actually do the fight with the boss. It changes based on what the boss is doing, and it gives you such a good feeling while you're fighting the boss. But then when you think about it afterwards, it makes so much sense to a character who, in my opinion, has one of the best stories I've seen in Final Fantasy so far. So it's just like everything pays off somewhere else in this game. It's more than just a song that played while you fought the boss. It's woven into the narrative of the game.
That's really interesting. I don't think we've had so far a piece of music or a song that's someone's described in that way as it's part of the story itself.
Yeah, the way I'm talking now, you probably think, wow, this is a fucking crazy person right now. But if you spoke to anyone who's played this game, they'd be like, oh yeah, true, dude, true.
Right. Well, let's have a listen. This is your final track from your playlist. This is Shiva's theme from Final Fantasy XIV Online. from Final Fantasy XIV Online Shiva's theme. Well, ApacheSmash, unfortunately, your time in the desert zone is very quickly coming to an end. You do still have a bit of power left in the base just to enjoy a few hours on the games console that you've brought with you. Which one is that?
I think you'd be a fool if you can bring a PC. Are you allowed to bring a PC, or is it gotta be a console?
I have said in the past no PCs, because that's kind of cheating a little bit.
That just shows you that it's just better, right? It's just better. I mean, I'd have to go with like the Series S. Because as long as I can play Metal Gear Solid 3, like I'm good. Like honestly, if you take away all of the games that only have MGS3, like I have so much to do with MGS3. I have so many more things I want to finish. You can always get better at that game. You can always become more consistent. You can always improve a little bit here and there. So yeah, I'm all good. Just give me that Xbox Series S. I got some films on there as well, so a bit of Metal Gear Solid 3, few films, I'll be fine for, at least 20 years.
Fantastic. And I do understand that whilst you have done runs of MGS3 in the past where you've done the bosses blindfolded, you are planning, or you at least have you started this year on doing the whole route blindfolded?
Oh, I'll do the whole game blindfolded this year. I promise you that. I assure you, I'll do it this year.
Oh my god, it's going to be absolutely incredible. Well, you'll have plenty of time in the desert zone to brush up on those skills. And then finally, there is an internet browser in the base somewhere, somehow. I don't know how. I haven't decided yet exactly how this bit works.
What is the downside of this island? Is this supposed to be bad? I'm having a great time. You're like you'll have to leave soon. I'm not leaving.
When the chopper comes, you just be like, nah, leave me.
That's fine. I'll stay.
So, for some reason, there's a problem with the cache, and you can only look at the content from one creator, streamer, YouTuber. Who is that person?
Oh, it's so difficult to narrow it down to one. But the person I watch every single day is I watch Asmongold's YouTube videos every day. Like, you never know what you're gonna get, whether it's like commentary on current events, news about MMOs, like. I just feel like he has good takes, and I've watched him for a long time, and he puts out a high volume of stuff. So that helps as well. Like I just enjoy his content.
Fantastic.
So it has to be Asmongold.
There will be a link to his channel in the description. ApacheSmash, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here on Desert Zone Discs. Please tell our wonderful viewers how they can find you.
Yo, if you're enjoying Desert Zone Discs, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ApacheSmash. And yeah, I do stream. There's been tales of me streaming in the past. I will be back to it. I'll be back to it soon. Once I'm well, I'm not going to put a date on it because I'm notorious for letting people down. So once I'm better, I'll be streaming again on Twitch at ApacheSmash as well. And yeah, as Nick said earlier, I also have my own podcast. It's called the Kojima Frequency. Feel free to check us out if you do like Metal Gear.
Fantastic. There'll be links to Apache's content and to the Kojima Frequency in the description as well. So please do check them out. I'm a regular listener of Kojima Frequency as well. It's a fantastic podcast. It's really, really interesting. Fingers, Days Ahead, and Nitroid, and of course Apache as well. They, the topics they got onto and the insight that they have into Metal Gear and the other Kojima games it's really interesting. So do check it out. It's certainly one of the things that encouraged me to start making this. So big thanks to those guys for being an inspiration.
No worries, mate. This is a good idea for a podcast. I like it a lot.
Oh, thank you. Well, we are now going to drift off into the sunset, leave you in the Desert Zone base, which you are clearly loving. I think I've gone too far the other way with this. I've turned it into a paradise as opposed to an apocalypse. Although some people enjoy a good apocalypse. Do you have any final words before you sit on your Xbox Series S and just wait for rescue to arrive.
Yeah, I really like Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Okay, we're gonna stop there. If we get Apache started on Star Trek, we've got another 2 hours left on this podcast.
No, thanks for having me on, mate. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, dude. Thank you so much for being on here, and we will now leave you. Goodbye, Apache Smash.
Goodbye.